We run down on your feature event, 25 laps. On the pole is car number 98, Bud Finale of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. Off the pole, car number 20, Keith Warner of Titusville, PA, a 1956 Ford. Second on the pole, car number 20, or car number 40, rather. Herb Gustafson, I understand, is from Titusville, PA. Off the pole is car number 96, Leon Lindstrom of Northeast PA, a 1957 Ford. Third on the pole, car number 102, Bud Gardner of Warren, PA. Off the pole, car number 220, Chuck Piazza of Jamestown, New York, a 1956 Chevy. Next on the pole, car number 1, Marv Thorpe of Sugargrove, PA, a 1956 Ford. Next off the pole, car number 12, Bill Jackson of Titusville, PA, a 1956 Ford. Next on the pole, car number 68, Jim Scott of Grand Valley, PA, a 1957 Chevy. Next off the pole, car number 21, Billy Layfield of Wellsville, New York, a 1956 Chevy. Next on the pole is car number 69, Don Strain of Ripley, New York, a 1956 Ford. Next off the pole, car number 37, Jim Hakes of Rock City, New York, a 1957 Ford. Next on the pole, car number 133, Jim Patrick of Wellsville, New York, a 1956 Ford. Next off the pole, car number 16, Kenny Johnson of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. Next on the pole, car number 30, Dean Layfield of Wellsville, New York, a 1957 Supercharged Ford. Next off the pole, car number M1, Bobby Snars of Busti, New York, a 1956 Chevy. Next on the pole, car number 8, Emery Mann of Warren, PA, a 1957 Chevy. Next off the pole, car number 27L, Sammy Lamancuso of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Golden Hawk. Next on the pole, car number 28, Paul Wilson of Jamestown, New York, a 1956 Ford. Next off the pole is car number 22, Eb Young of Titusville, PA, a 56 Ford. And pushing the field, car number 4, Hyle Russell of Kane, PA, a 1956 Chevy. Quick rundown of your points. In first place is 554 with 554 points is Hyle Russell. Second, Squirt Johns with 550. Third, Dean Layfield with 448. Fourth, Bobby Snars with 352. And fifth, Emery Mann with 328.
Seen pictures about you. We've seen movies that you're in. We have a movie of you, and we have audio of you, but we have never met you. So this is a thrill. So here we are in Centerville, Pennsylvania, near Titusville. Was there at the time you grew up as a kid? Was there racing going on any place?
No, down in Dempseytown, that's below Titusville. There's a track there. That it's there quite a few years. I raced here back with the old cars. Back then they had the Model A's, the coupes anyway. Everybody about drove them or the old coupes that they could find, and that's why you can't find any of the old coupes anymore.
You guys used them all up.
Yep, that's for sure. Yep.
So what sparked your interest in sort of developing a car that possibly could race?
Well, I don't know, Eb Young,
Yeah.
you got, he was my brother-in-law.
Next off the pole is car number 22, Eb Young of Titusville, PA, a 56 Ford.
Him and my brother built the first one, the new cars. Well, then I, by myself, so I built one of the old ones. And we used to pull clean up to Bradford and everywhere. With Eb would pull his and I'd pull mine when they was running both classes. So then the old Skyline track, we run there, and until they shut it down, we went to Stateline, they opened it up.
What kind of car did you start off with? What was...
A 40, it's about a 41 or 42 Ford coupe, yeah.
Your connection with Eb Young, that became an interest?
Yeah, him and I worked together on them a lot, and of course my brother and him was in it together, where I just did it myself. Well, then later on when I went to the late models, this guy by the name of Ollie Stokes, and him and I was together in them. And Bob Mack's machinery was out in Titusville, out of Titusville a little ways. Well, that's where Ollie worked, and they had that big truck. You pull the cars up, the bed will slide down on them, and that made it pretty nice to haul the cars on. So you get done with a race, a lot of times you need to carry it home.
Do you remember your first race?
Yeah, and that was in Dempseytown.
Okay.
You know, the race with the old cars.
So what kind of car was that then?
An old Ford Coupe.
And you're out there on the racetrack for the first time. How did you feel? What was your reaction?
Nervous. So once you got going, you was all right, but going that warm-up lap, it was hard to believe, but your leg would jerk so bad you couldn't hold it with both hands. You was ready to push the old gas down, and that leg would just be pounding the floor. So.
Remember how you did that first race?
No, I can't remember. It was in the top 5 anyway.
What do you remember about Skyline track?
Well, that was but they wouldn't pay nothing on the features or nothing. So I was there the night. I was still running the old models, the late, and Eb was running the late models. Well, we had a boycott. Guys didn't say a thing till they got ready for the feature race, and nobody would go out. And all the drivers says nope. Well, they finally talked 3 or 4 guys into it, and to go out. Well, they was out just warm up lap. Well, then Squirt Johns, his sister, I think it was, she was in the stands. So she went out past the flagman and out on the track, and then the bleachers emptied right out on the track and stopped it.
Really?
Yep. They stopped the race. Well, then he decided they'd make a deal with him then, so that they guaranteed purse anyway.
If you had to close your eyes and describe a lap around Skyline, what was it like?
Well, it was different, I'll tell you. It was more of a flat track. It didn't have a bank good. Well, the last feature race I run there, I think it was 69 cars they started on the feature race. They lined us up 3 abreast. Well, the lead car was I was pushing the field, was right behind me when the flagman dropped the flag, and I won that stinking race.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So you had to go by
68 cars.
68 cars. Mm-hmm. What kind of car did you have then?
A flathead Ford. It was quite a quite a job setting them up, because you remember the old Ford had the buggy springs that rolled this way. Well, it was hard to set the car up, so I had to change all that, and I put the springs the other way on them. So it was a lot different. So it was a lot of fun.
So what was a normal race card day? I mean, was heats, consolation? How did that work at Skyline?
Well, they started the heat races, and then the consolation race, and then the semis, and then the feature.
How did they figure out who was going to be in the feature, the lineup?
That we could never straighten out. I don't know. Like down at Dempseytown, when I run there, I'd won a heat race, and I won the semi. And come time to run the feature, I'm not listed. I said, whoa, wait a minute, what do you got to do? So you got to win a race. I got to win 2 of them. And so I'll just fall in at the tail end of the field. And that's where so you never know what you was up against. So yeah, they had a lot of tracks back here then opening up. The old track out out of Titusville, they called it Queen City Speedway. Yeah, I run there the whole time that was open. And then they had a track in Franklin they called Bully Hill, up on the hill out of Franklin.
Okay.
So I run there, and now by Corey, I can't remember the name of the track, but there's a little stream down through the length of the track. Where you come down the side, cross the creek, and up over, and you go up over a bank, come down the other side, cross that creek again, and come up.
My gosh.
Yeah, it was quite.
Like rollerball, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you race at rollerball?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Hit that water, and boy, it would fly the guy behind you or the guy in front of you. You couldn't see nothing, you know. Another older one was the one up at Dickey Bend, up by Warren, and it went out. I didn't get to race on it because they shut it down. It was in behind the old drive-in theater going into Corey.
Right.
Yep.
So you started racing in '57, and raced. Did you race every weekend? Was it sort of Friday, Saturday,
Yep.
Sunday?
Every Saturday. We run every Saturday, and then during the week, if another track would open, we'd go there and run them too. So.
Did you make any money doing that stuff?
Well, back then, at the end of the year, you could break even. You could make enough to break even on it. But in the later years with the late models, and the garages got involved, you couldn't butt heads with them. Dean Layfield, you remember him? There was a good driver. Yeah. I learned more off of Dean by following him on racing, to get around. So I'd start the race, I'd try to get on his tail. Every place he'd throw the car into the slide on the curve, I'd try to do the same thing. It was amazing. I decided to go into late models. I wanted to go into them instead of staying in the older ones. And it was a lot of fun back then. So it was a heartbreak sport. You'd have a race in the bag and blow a tire, or somebody run you into the fence or something like that with 2 laps to go. And I had some awful pileups at Stateline that way. They, you'd think you had to race pretty much in the bag. And I remember this one guy, I can't think of his name, but he drove for Jack Dean. That's before Eb Young started driving for him. And he had run into the fence between 3 and 4, and he'd sit there for at least 10 laps, maybe more. And right where you throw the car in the slide, and coming around that, come into the 3rd turn, and finally got her going. And he never looked back. He just put it reverse and backed out. Caught me right in front of the back wheel. Ugh. And Emery Man was always right on my bumper. And I went for a ride. It wasn't, that guy hit me. Emery hit me in the back end. And that car started one of these. And the whole way down that straightaway there, clean down to the flagman, is where the car finally stopped, laying on her side. And that ended that race. But I was in 2nd or 3rd spot when that happened.
Call the race to be on. They're still all going, so your race is on. A spin out by Marv Thorpe in car number 1 on that 4th turn. And Marv is... I hope they all see that one and go right there into the fence of Phil Jackson, car number 12. Car number 12 into the fence. Mark Thorpe, car number 1 on the 4th turn. The inside.
I had so much trouble in Stateline. Every time they'd start the race, they'd start Jughead Pierce right behind me. I don't care if I was in the front or in the middle or in the back, it seemed Jughead would be right behind me. We'd go into that 1st turn, and right where you stowed your car, well, he'd come right into me and over I'd go. Boom. 3 weeks in a row he did that with me. Old Jughead Pierce.
Well, talk about Jughead Pierce. He's a character. What was he like?
Oh, he was a nice guy, but he had, between the seats, he had a thing there, a bottle holder, and he always set his beer right there.
During the race?
Yeah, before the race started, he had his beer to drink, so. And he was quite a driver. He was a good driver. Well, that Patrick was another one. Now, this guy that was with me, Ollie Stokes, I kept telling him, I says, there's something wrong here. The car's not handling right. So we got Jim to drive it. And he came back in after the race, and he says, told us there's something to do in the back spring. Take a spring or so out of it on the one side. And I come in 2nd in the feature that night. Yeah, we changed that thing, And like I told us, old Ollie, I says, no, that car's not handling. When Jim come in, he says, I don't know how you keep that on the track. The way we had the back end beefed up. So we changed it around and it worked good. So
Did you have a beard all your life? Was that, I mean, that's how people remember Phil Jackson as...
yeah, it started with a Centennial in Titusville, the oil Centennial. Everybody started wearing beards. I wore that, man, for years. I've had a beard, so. I had at one time a 11.5-inch mustache from tip to tip. Keep that curled up with that wax, and yeah, it was something. Blackmer and Snars, they used to put on quite a show for the crowd all the time, running side by side. Yeah, Jim Scott, he was a good driver too. Old Jim was a heck of a nice guy.
You talked about Eb Young, and Eb Young seemed to have a car that was a convertible, wasn't it?
Yeah, he started in a convertible.
Why a convertible? I mean, he stood out.
I don't know. That's what they got out of a junkyard, and that's what they built, was that old convertible.
Did he have some successes with that?
Yeah, I don't think he won any features or nothing, but it run good.
What was your number, Phil?
112.
112.
Yep.
Why 112?
I don't know. I just picked a number out that nobody else had, and that's what he put on there. I I had 12, just 12, and then I went in the old cars, and then went to the new cars. I think I went to the 112.
Did somebody else already have a 12?
Yeah.
How, during that time period at Stateline, did you have some successes?
Oh yeah, I finished a year in the top 10 on the points on Stateline from my first year, and I thought it was pretty good with the guys you're running against. Core Johns. Now there was a good car. Of course, he had that garage. They owned a dealership there. Had a garage behind him. Then when I'd come home, I'd have to work on my car. Well, them guys there, a lot of them, they didn't. The garages did all the work, the mechanics and everything.
The reason why you chose to drive all the way to Busti to race?
Well, that was the only track then that you could go in and run, and every week it was going to be going on, racing there. Altogether, I'd say 10 years.
You were up at Stateline from 58 until when?
In the 60s. I forget what year it actually was. And then I got out of it for about 3 years, and then I went back in.
And you went back to Stateline?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that one I told you when I first started up there, and they started me in last place in all them cars. Well, when he dropped the flag, of course, everybody's always hugging the inside. Well, I got right out against the fence. And in about 2 or 3 laps, I was better than halfway through the pack. And I finally got up there, but what happened is so many wrecks, and they never stopped the race. There are a lot of places just one car gets through there. And then after other guys see what I did when I pulled out, of course, other guys started doing the same thing and closed them holes up. So, but I still was lucky to get up in the front of the pack anyway, and still run it. So that was quite a race there. Yep, there was a lot of junk piled around that track when the race was over with, because there was a lot of pileups.
Do you remember if you won any good money that day?
I think $100.
Wow, you were rich, weren't you?
Yep, got $100 for that.
You probably didn't have that much in your car, did you?
No. Well, I took that old 59 AB block and that flathead Ford, and he drilled that out. This guy down in Titusville, I took it to a machine shop, and he bored it out 187 thousandths. Put them oversized pistons in it and everything, and boy, I made enough that night to pay my engine off. Yep, I won that feature, and I think I won a heat that night too. So it was really something. Oh, there's another track up by Corey somewhere, and I can't remember where it was at. But I pulled in there and they didn't want me there. It was all local drivers. And it was in a feature race and only had 1 or 2 laps to go, and they put me right into a fence. And that was the end of that night there. But there a lot of tracks you pulled in now, the Roller Bowl. When I pulled it in there, after the race, them guys was all over that car, and they said, "Don't come back." That was it. Don't come back with your car, because they knew the engine was hopped up, and
Right.
so because I'd cammed it and everything else. In the late models, the starting the year, the last year I run, I think, and went up to meetings before the season started. And it's supposed to be stock engines. So we was the only stock engine there. So come home, went to working on that car. And I remember I worked 11 to 7 at the shop. And got out of work that morning and went to Chicago. And out to a big speed shop out there. Can't think of the name of it. But I bought a new cam and we put 3 deuces on that. And had them all hooked up together. So the first night up there, this was quite an experience. They had the first night there with them 3 deuces on it. That baby was running. Well, man, I come down that straightaway. You take your foot off the gas at the end. It didn't quit. It kept right on. So I made it a couple laps around there, and I finally got it over. I get in the pits, and it's Ollie Stokes. He was laughing like crazy. He reached his pocket and he pulled that little clip out to hold your things on your carburetor. He says, "You're missing this, aren't you?" I could have killed him, I'll tell you. I took an awful ride down them straightaways too. And you get to the end, you let off in the gas and it just don't stop. It keeps right on going. Old Ollie was quite a guy. I mean, that was funny to him, but it wasn't funny to me. But it was funny how it seemed like every time, look at some of them wrecks I was in, Emery Man was right behind me, every time. And he'd give me a little tug when somebody hit you, and then he'd wrap me the way he'd go. But Jughead's the one that really done me in. Right at the start of the race, as soon as you break it into the slide on the bottom turn, old Jughead would come right into that left back wheel, and away you'd go.
What caused you to finally say the hell with it? I don't want to race anymore.
Yeah, the money wise, it got where you could see with the handwriting on the wall, you couldn't compete with them. In Jamestown, New York, and up around Warren and all, about every garage here sponsored a car.
Yes.
But in Titusville, you couldn't pay a garage to sponsor you. You could not get any sponsors. Now, I run an Esso station here in town, and I got my gas and oil. Of course, I run the station.
Yeah. So you sponsored yourself.
Yeah. So it was hard to get any sponsors at all in Titusville. You couldn't get them. And it got to the place where you could see the handwriting on the wall. You just couldn't compete. And 2 cars are supposed to be stocked. They start side by side, and that guy's going around the curve, and you're not even to it yet. Well, you know something wrong here somewhere. Well, the old Dempseytown track, when they first opened it, it was banked. I mean, really banked. Mm-hmm. And you could keep her wound right up on that, and it'd hold you in there. Even the straightaways was banked to a certain extent. But them curves, man, you come around that, and then they changed it and flattened the track out and made it longer. Mm-hmm. But of course, they run them sprints down there. And it was quite a track.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I liked it as far as you could get up and go. I mean, you really get with it. So.
Did you have a driver or two that you would occasionally go to their garage and just sort of bounce ideas off of?
I had a lot of trouble with the right front spindle bending it, and you couldn't tell it was bent to look at it. And I forget which one of these drivers it was, but I went to him up to Stateline. He was driving the same kind of car. And how do you keep from bending that spindle? Well, he took me over and showed me. He took a 3/4 ton truck spindle, And where the kingpin goes down through, they burnt that off and they welded that spindle over that and run that 3/4 ton truck spindle. And that's when I never had no trouble after that. From then on, I didn't bend no more, but it didn't take much to bend them on a rough track, you know. Mm-hmm. You're throwing all the weight on that right front wheel. And you could even put a flat edge on that spindle and you could barely see but that car would not handle. When you had that bent spindle, she just wouldn't handle.
So aside from Eb Young from this area, was there anybody else who came from this area and went to Stateline?
Yeah, Keith Warner. He only run 1 or 2 years up a Stateline. Yeah, he's passed away now, but he was, the three of us would go together all the time. And I remember one night we was pulling up to Warren, or up to Brockway maybe, but up through Warren or on that old crooked road, you're going around there. And I know Eb was pulling ahead of me and started around this one curve and the car jackknifed on him. Oh. And man, it was a long ways down. And this one friend of mine, Jim Davis, he's a big boy, about 260 pounder. And when Eb got stopped, Eb was there, Jim was in the back seat. He was the first one out of that car. He went through that little window. Now how he got out of there, nobody knew. But Jim got out that window, got out of that car. He wasn't about to go over that bank, so.
So he was in the car that was being towed?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was in the car but he got out of her, I know that. He was the first one out, so.
That was his first late model.
Okay.
Where did you get that car from, Phil? Do you remember where you bought that 56 Ford at?
Yeah, out of down by Shipmanville junkyard. I think is where I picked that up at. I told you I come out of work and went to Chicago and got the parts, come back home, and had a guy downtown working on it. And went to working on that car, and we finally got it together about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And no breaking in or nothing of it, so we were going to race it that night. So we put it on that truck and had it a fast idle the whole way to Stateline. Let that engine run.
You're kidding me.
Yep. Yep.
You let the engine run all the way to Stateline.
Yep.
To break in the engine.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep. We run her the whole way up there, and she run good. So that's we put them 3 deuces on there, and boy, you never know it was the same car. I mean, that thing would get up and go. Well, the last I seen all them guys, Stateline had their 25th year anniversary, I think. I thought maybe Stateline would have that again, but they haven't, have they?
Well, it doesn't mean they won't.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, now we know your address. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep your powder dry, as they say.
Yep.
Going to a meeting at Jim's house on Wednesday.
There you go.
I'll
You
bring
got
it
the
up.
right guy.
Yeah,
bring it up.
Let us know. Keep us posted.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. Yep, I really had a lot of fun doing that. So.